Tonight, I'm bringing you a story about a woman who was cast out to die, rejected, abandoned, left for the shadows to devour. But what the world didn't know, she wasn't prey. She was something far more dangerous. Stick with me until the very end to see how a girl left to rot in a cursed forest rose to a throne that even kings learned to fear. And hey, if you're watching from New York, Tokyo, London, or anywhere else in this wild world, drop your city in the comments below. Hit that like button and let's dive into the darkness together. The blood moon hung low over the Thornwood Pack territory, fat and swollen like a wound splitting open across the sky. Serafina Duskgreen stood in the center of the gathering circle, dirt under her knees, her wrists bound with iron-laced rope that burned against her skin. The entire pack had come out to watch. Not to mourn, to witness. Her mate, former mate, stood 20 feet away, his arms crossed, his face carved from stone. "You're weak," Damon Crow said, his voice loud enough to carry across the clearing. "A liability, a stain on this pack's bloodline." Serafina's breath came shallow. Her ribs ached from the beating she'd taken 2 nights before. 3 wolves, no witnesses, just enough bruises to make the message clear. "You don't belong here." She wanted to scream, wanted to tell him that she'd given everything to this pack, that she'd hunted when her leg was broken, that she'd stood watch through snowstorms while others slept, that she'd loved him even when he looked at her like she was nothing. But her voice had left her hours ago. "The bond is severed," Damon continued, and he reached up to his chest, fingers pressing against the place where the mate mark should have glowed. He tore it away, not with claws, not with ceremony, but with sheer, brutal will. The bond snapped like a rope gone taut, and Serafina gasped, her body lurching forward as pain exploded through her sternum. It felt like her heart was being ripped out through her ribs. She fell forward, palms slamming into the dirt, and the pack laughed. "Pathetic," someone muttered. "Should have been culled years ago," another voice added. Damon's boots appeared in her line of vision. He crouched down, close enough that she could smell the pine and smoke clinging to his clothes. "You'll be taken to the Blackthorn border and left there. If you survive the night, consider it mercy." Serafina lifted her head, hair hanging in her face, and met his eyes. "You're a coward." His hand shot out, grabbing her jaw, squeezing until she felt her teeth grind together. "Say that again." She didn't. Not because she was afraid, but because she was tired. Tired of fighting for people who would never see her, tired of begging to be enough. "Take her," Damon said, shoving her back into the dirt. 2 wolves hauled her to her feet, rough hands, no gentleness, and dragged her toward the edge of the territory. She didn't fight. What was the point? The pack had already decided. She was nothing, a mistake, a weak link that needed cutting. The Blackthorn border wasn't a place anyone went willingly. It was a stretch of forest so old that even the wolves avoided it. The trees grew wrong here, twisted, black-barked things with roots that looked like claws digging into the earth. The air tasted metallic. The silence was too thick, like the forest was holding its breath. They dumped her just inside the tree line. "Good luck," one of the wolves sneered, though there was no humor in it, just cold dismissal. Then they were gone. Serafina lay on the ground for a long time, staring up at the canopy of skeletal branches overhead. The blood moon filtered through in patches, painting everything red. Her body ached. Her chest felt hollow where the bond had been. She closed her eyes. Let it end. She wasn't sure how long she lay there. Minutes, hours. Time felt slippery in this place, like the forest bent it to its will. But eventually, the cold started to seep in. Not the surface kind. The kind that reached into your bones and squeezed. Serafina forced herself to sit up. Her hands were still bound, but she managed to get her knees under her. She looked around. The forest was watching her. She didn't know how she knew that, but she did. It was in the way the shadows seemed to shift without wind, the way the silence felt crowded, like 100 invisible eyes had turned her direction. "Come on then," she muttered, voice hoarse. "Get it over with." Nothing moved. She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "What? I'm not worth killing?" Still nothing. Serafina dragged herself to her feet, swaying. Her vision blurred at the edges, exhaustion dragging at her like chains. She took a step, then another. She didn't know where she was going, just away, away from the pack, away from the life that had chewed her up and spit her out. She made it maybe a quarter mile before her legs gave out. She hit the ground hard, tasted copper. For a moment, she just lay there, cheek pressed into the moss, breathing shallow. Her body was shutting down. She could feel it, the way her heartbeat slowed, the way warmth started leaking out of her limbs. This is it. She thought about her mother, dead 5 years now. Thought about the sister she'd lost to a raid when they were kids. Thought about all the people who told her she wasn't strong enough, fast enough, good enough. Maybe they were right. A sound pulled her back. Footsteps. Not the light, quick tread of a wolf. Something heavier, deliberate. Serafina cracked her eyes open, squinting into the darkness. A figure stood 10 feet away. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black that seemed to drink in the moonlight. She couldn't make out his face, just the shape of him, solid and unmoving. "You're trespassing," the figure said. His voice was low, rough-edged, the kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to command attention. Serafina tried to speak, but all that came out was a rasp. The figure stepped closer, and the moonlight caught his face. Sharp features, angular jaw, eyes that gleamed like polished silver. No, not silver. Something darker. Something that made her instincts scream run, even though her body couldn't move. "You're dying," he said, tilting his head. Not a question. An observation. She managed a nod. He crouched down in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint scars along his knuckles. "Do you want to die?" Serafina stared at him. The honest answer was yes, but something in the way he asked, like he was offering her a choice she didn't know she had, made her hesitate. "No," she whispered. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Good." He reached out, and before she could flinch, his hand closed around her wrist. The rope burned away, just gone, like it had never existed. Serafina gasped, jerking back, but he didn't let go. "You're coming with me," he said. "Who?" Her voice cracked. "Who are you?" His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment the entire forest seemed to go still. "Kael Varos," he said. "Alpha King of the Shadowlands." Her blood went cold. The Shadowlands. She'd heard stories. Every wolf had. A realm beyond the borders, ruled by a king so ruthless that even rival alphas wouldn't speak his name out loud. A place where the weak didn't survive, and mercy was a myth. "I don't—" She tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. "I don't want—" "You don't get a choice," Kael said, and then he hauled her up, slinging her over his shoulder like she weighed nothing. Serafina's vision swam, exhaustion and panic tangling together. She tried to fight, but her body was done. Completely, utterly done. "Put me down," she managed. "No." "Why are you—" "Because," Kael said, his voice dropping into something darker, something that vibrated against her ribs. "You're mine now." And then the forest swallowed them whole. Serafina woke to warmth, not the distant, flickering kind of a dying fire. Real warmth, soaking into her skin, making her muscles unclench for the first time in days. She blinked, disoriented, and found herself staring up at a ceiling made of dark wood and stone. Not the forest. She jerked upright, too fast, and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her ribs, and she hissed, clutching her side. "Easy." The voice came from across the room. Serafina's head snapped toward the sound. Kael stood by the window, arms crossed, watching her with that same unsettling intensity. The room was large, sparse, but well-made. A bed, a table, a fireplace crackling softly in the corner. No bars, no chains. But she didn't feel free. "Where am I?" she demanded. "Shadow Keep," Kael said. "My territory." "Why?" He tilted his head, considering her like she was a puzzle he was deciding whether to solve or discard. "You collapsed in my forest. I claimed you. Simple." "Claimed me?" Serafina's voice cracked on the word. "I'm not a thing you can just—" "You were dying," Kael interrupted, his tone flat. "Rejected, abandoned, left to rot. You had nothing, were nothing." He pushed off the wall, taking a step closer. "I gave you a second chance. You should be grateful." Serafina stared at him, anger flaring hot in her chest despite the exhaustion weighing her down. "I didn't ask for your help." "No," Kyle agreed. You asked for death. I chose to ignore that. She wanted to scream at him, wanted to throw something, but she was too tired, too hollowed out. Instead, she just looked away, jaw clenched. Kale watched her for a long moment, then turned toward the door. Rest. You'll need your strength. For what? He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. His eyes gleamed in the firelight. For survival. My court doesn't tolerate weakness. And right now? His gaze raked over her, cold and assessing. You're the weakest thing here. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a quiet click. Serafina sat in the silence, fists clenched in the blankets. Weakest thing here. The words echoed in her skull, mixing with Damon's voice, with the laughter of the pack, with every sneer and dismissal she'd endured. She looked down at her hands, bruised, scarred, shaking. Not for long, she whispered. The next day, Serafina was summoned. A sharp knock on the door woke her. Too early, judging by the gray light filtering through the window. She barely had time to drag herself upright before the door opened and a woman stepped inside. She was tall, elegant, with silver hair braided down her back and eyes like chips of ice. Her clothes were immaculate, deep green leather fitted perfectly, weapons strapped to her thighs like accessories. You're the stray, the woman said. Not a question. Serafina bristled. I have a name. I don't care. The woman's smile was all teeth. The king wants you in the training yard. You have 5 minutes. Training for what? For not dying. The woman turned on her heel. 4 minutes. Serafina scrambled out of bed, ignoring the protest of her bruised body. Someone had left clothes folded on the chair, plain, durable. She pulled them on quickly, fingers fumbling with the laces. When she stumbled out into the hallway, the silver-haired woman was waiting. Name's Lyra, the woman said as they walked. Second in command. And before you ask, no, I don't like you. No, I don't think you belong here. And no, I won't go easy on you. Great, Serafina muttered, really feeling the warm welcome. Lyra laughed, sharp and humorless. This isn't a sanctuary, girl. This is the Shadowlands. You survive, or you don't. The king may have brought you here, but that doesn't mean the rest of us have to accept you. They stepped outside into a courtyard, and Serafina's breath caught. The place was massive. Stone walls stretched high on all sides, and beyond them, the forest loomed dark and endless. But it was the people that made her freeze. Wolves. Dozens of them. All moving with a deadly, practiced grace that made her pack look like children playing at war. They sparred, trained, moved through drills with brutal efficiency, and every single one of them stopped to stare when she walked in. The weight of their gazes was suffocating. Fresh meat, someone called out, and laughter rippled through the yard. Serafina's hands curled into fists. Kale stood at the far end of the yard, arms crossed, watching. When their eyes met, he didn't smile, didn't nod, just watched, like he was waiting to see what she'd do. Lyra stepped forward, raising her voice. This is Serafina Duskrin. The king has claimed her. She'll be training with us. More laughter. Claimed her for what? A man called out. Bed warmer? Serafina's jaw tightened. Lyra's expression didn't change. Anyone who wants to test her is welcome to try. Winner gets bragging rights. She turned to Serafina, her smile cruel. You're up, Stray. Pick an opponent. Serafina looked around the yard. Every face was hostile. Every stance relaxed, confident. They didn't see her as a threat. They saw her as entertainment. Her gaze landed on a wolf near the center, a man built like a brick wall, arms crossed, grinning at her like she was a joke. Him, Serafina said. The man's grin widened. Oh, this'll be fun. They cleared a space. Someone tossed Serafina a training staff, and she caught it clumsily. Her hands were still shaking. Her body still ached. The man, Gareth, someone called him, didn't even bother with a weapon. He just cracked his knuckles and stepped into the circle. Try not to die too fast, he said. Serafina didn't respond. She was too busy trying to remember how to breathe. The fight started fast. Gareth came at her like a freight train, and Serafina barely got her staff up in time to block. The impact rattled her bones, nearly sent her sprawling. He laughed, pressing harder, and she stumbled back. Come on, Stray, show us what you've got. Serafina gritted her teeth, swinging the staff in a wide arc. Gareth dodged easily, then swept her legs out from under her. She hit the ground hard, dust exploding around her. Laughter echoed through the yard. "Stay down," Gareth said, standing over her. "Save yourself the embarrassment." Serafina's vision blurred. Her chest heaved. Every muscle screamed at her to quit. But then she looked up, past Gareth, and saw Kyle, still watching, still waiting, weak. The word burned through her. Serafina surged upward, driving the staff into Gareth's knee. He grunted, stumbling, and she used the opening to roll away, getting her feet back under her. Gareth's expression darkened. "All right. No more playing." He came at her again, faster this time, and Serafina couldn't keep up. He grabbed the staff, ripped it from her hands, and slammed his fist into her stomach. She doubled over, gasping, and he shoved her back. She hit the ground again, tasted blood. "Pathetic," Gareth spat. Serafina lay there, staring up at the sky. Her body felt like it was made of lead. Every breath hurt. "Get up." The voice wasn't hers. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere she didn't recognize. "Get up." Her fingers dug into the dirt. She forced herself onto her hands and knees, then her feet. Blood dripped from her lip. Gareth looked genuinely surprised. "You serious?" Serafina didn't answer. She just moved. She didn't have technique, didn't have strength. But she had rage. A lifetime of it, burning hot and vicious, and she threw it all into the next strike. Her fist connected with Gareth's jaw, and his head snapped to the side. The yard went silent. Gareth touched his mouth, came away with blood, and smiled. "There it is." He hit her again and again and again until she couldn't see straight, until the world narrowed to pain and dirt and the sound of her own heartbeat. But she didn't stay down. Every time he knocked her over, she got back up. Finally, Cale's voice cut through the haze. "Enough!" Gareth stepped back immediately, and Serafina collapsed, gasping, her entire body trembling. Cale crossed the yard in 3 strides and crouched in front of her. His expression was unreadable. "You lost," he said quietly. "I know," Serafina rasped, "but you didn't quit." She looked up at him, blood on her lips, and managed a bitter smile. "Guess I'm too stubborn to die." Something flickered in Kyle's eyes. Something that might have been approval. He stood addressing the yard. "She trains. Every day. Anyone who thinks she doesn't belong is welcome to prove it." Then he looked down at her one last time. "But if you die, it won't be because I didn't give you a chance." And as the crowd dispersed, leaving her alone in the dirt, Serafina made herself a promise. She wasn't going to die here. She was going to become something they couldn't ignore, even if it killed her. The bruises didn't fade for 3 days. Serafina woke each morning feeling like she'd been trampled by a stampede, every muscle screaming, bones aching in places she didn't know existed. But she dragged herself out of bed anyway, because staying down meant proving them right. The training yard became her world. Dawn to dusk, she was there, stumbling through drills, getting knocked flat, bleeding into the dirt. The other wolves didn't go easy on her. If anything, they went harder, like they were trying to break her before she could embarrass them further. Lyra was the worst. "Again!" the silver-haired woman barked, circling Serafina like a predator sizing up wounded prey. "You're too slow. Your footwork's garbage, and if you keep dropping your guard like that, someone's going to rip your throat out." Serafina wiped blood from her nose, panting. "I'm trying. Try harder." Lyra lunged without warning, and Serafina barely got her arms up in time. The impact sent her skidding backward, boots scraping against stone. "You fight like you're apologizing for existing," Lyra said, not even winded. "Stop waiting for permission to hit back." "I'm not." Lyra's fist came out of nowhere, catching Serafina square in the jaw. Stars exploded across her vision, and she hit the ground hard. Laughter rippled through the watching crowd. "Permission," Lyra repeated coldly. "You keep fighting, like someone who's been taught to lose. Unlearn it or get out." Serafina pushed herself up on shaking arms, tasted copper. Her vision swam, but through the haze she saw Kyle standing at the edge of the yard, watching, always watching. He never stepped in, never offered encouragement, just stood there with his arms crossed, expression unreadable, like he was conducting some kind of experiment and she was the variable. It made her furious. She got to her feet, swaying, and faced Lyra again. "One more." Lyra's eyebrow arched. "You can barely stand. One more. Something flickered in Lyra's expression. Maybe respect, maybe just curiosity, but she shrugged and raised her fists. Your funeral! This time, when Lyra came at her, Serafina didn't wait. She ducked low, drove her shoulder into Lyra's midsection, and used momentum to throw the woman off balance. It wasn't pretty, wasn't skilled, but it worked. Lyra stumbled, and for half a second surprise crossed her face. Then she smiled. Better, Lyra said, and swept Serafina's legs out from under her. Serafina hit the ground again, but this time the laughter was quieter, less certain. She lay there staring up at the sky, chest heaving, and allowed herself a small, bitter smile. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, Serafina limped back to her room and found someone waiting. A girl, younger than Serafina, maybe 19, sat perched on the windowsill, swinging her legs. She had wild auburn curls, freckles scattered across her nose, and an energy that felt too bright for this place. You look like hell, the girl said cheerfully. Serafina paused in the doorway. Who are you? Mira, the girl hopped down, grinning. Well, I guess you'd call me the resident healer, though mostly I just patch people up after Lyra beats the life out of them. She tilted her head. Speaking of which, sit, let me see that jaw. Serafina hesitated, then shuffled over and sat on the edge of the bed. Mira moved with quick, practiced efficiency, fingers gentle as she examined the swelling. You've got guts, Mira said, pulling a jar of something pungent from her bag. Most people don't last a week here. You're still standing after 3 days of Lyra's special brand of encouragement. She dabbed ointment onto Serafina's jaw, and the sting made her wince. Stubborn or stupid? Both, Serafina muttered. Mira laughed, a bright, genuine sound that felt out of place in the Shadowlands. I like you. You've got that feral dog energy, beaten down but still biting. Thanks, I think. It's a compliment. Mira capped the jar and sat back. Word of advice, though? Don't let them see you bleed. Obviously you're going to bleed. Lyra makes sure of that. But don't let them see it bother you. The second they think you're breaking, they'll go for the kill. Serafina flexed her jaw, feeling the ointment work its numbing magic. Why are you helping me? Mira shrugged. Because everyone else is rooting for you to fail, and I've always liked an underdog. She stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Also because the king asked me to. So, there's that. Serafina's head snapped up. Kyle asked you to check on me? Don't read too much into it. He does that with all his new acquisitions. Mira paused at the door, glancing back with a sly smile. Though, between you and me, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, like he's trying to figure out if you're a threat or a treasure. I'm neither. Maybe, Mira said, or maybe you just don't know what you are yet. Then she was gone, leaving Serafina alone with that thought gnawing at her. The days bled together after that. Training, pain, sleep, repeat. But slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, things started to shift. Her blocks got faster, her strikes landed more often. She started reading her opponent's movements, anticipating instead of just reacting. It wasn't skill, not yet, but it was progress. The other wolves noticed. She's getting quicker, someone muttered during a sparring session. Still weak, though, another replied, but the insults had less bite now, less certainty. Serafina kept her head down and kept working. She didn't talk to anyone unless forced, didn't try to make friends, just trained until her body gave out, then pushed a little further. At night, alone in her room, she felt it, something stirring beneath her skin. A restlessness. A heat that had nothing to do with the fireplace. It started as a whisper, then grew louder, like something inside her was waking up after a long, forced sleep. She didn't know what it was, but it scared her. 2 weeks in, Kyle summoned her to his study. The room was all dark wood and stone, shelves lined with books that looked older than the forest itself. Kyle stood by the window, silhouetted against the pale afternoon light. Sit, he said without turning. Serafina stayed standing. What do you want? Kale glanced over his shoulder, one eyebrow raised. Still got that spark. Good. He turned fully, leaning back against the windowsill. I'm told you're improving. I'm not dead yet. Low bar. It's the one I've got. Kale's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair enough. He crossed his arms, studying her. Tell me something. Why are you still here? Serafina frowned. You dragged me here. Remember? I gave you a room, food, a chance, but no one's forcing you to train. You could leave, walk out the gate. No one would stop you. Yes, they would. No, Kyle said quietly. They wouldn't, because you're not a prisoner, Serafina. You're a guest. She stared at him, trying to figure out if he was lying, but his expression gave nothing away. So why stay? Kale pressed. Why get beaten bloody every day for people who hate you? Serafina's jaw tightened. Because I have nowhere else to go. You could go back to your pack. No, I couldn't. Why not? Because they'd kill me. The words came out sharper than she intended. They rejected me, cast me out. Going back would just give them another chance to finish the job. Kale watched her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. So you're here because it's better than death? Yes. That's not enough. Serafina's hands curled into fists. What do you want me to say? That I'm grateful? That I owe you? I want you to want it, Kyle said, his voice dropping into something darker, more dangerous. Survival isn't enough in this place. You need to want to be strong, need to want to prove them wrong. Otherwise, you're just delaying the inevitable. I do want... No, you don't. He pushed off the windowsill, closing the distance between them in 2 strides. You want to survive. That's different. Survival is passive. It's enduring. I need you to be active, to fight not because you have to, but because you choose to. Serafina glared up at him. Why do you even care? Kael's eyes gleamed. Because you're mine, and I don't keep broken things. The words hit like a slap. I'm not a thing. Then stop acting like one. He leaned in, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. Stop waiting for permission. Stop apologizing for taking up space. If you want respect, take it. If you want power, claim it. No one here is going to hand you anything. Serafina's breath came shallow, anger and something else. Something she didn't want to name, coiling tight in her chest. What if I can't? She whispered. Then you die, Kyle said simply. And I find someone who can. He stepped back, turning toward the door. Training resumes at dawn. Don't be late. He was halfway out when Serafina's voice stopped him. Kyle. He paused. Why did you really bring me here? For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he glanced back and his eyes held something that looked almost like hunger. Because when I found you in that forest, bleeding and broken, you looked at me like you wanted to rip my throat out. His smile was sharp. And I wanted to see if you'd actually try. Then he was gone. Serafina stood there, heart pounding, and realized something. She did want to rip his throat out, but she also wanted to prove him right. The next day, everything changed. Serafina was in the training yard, running through drills with a handful of other wolves when a commotion erupted near the main gate. Voices raised, shouting. Everyone stopped. Lyra appeared at the edge of the yard, her expression grim. Kale wants everyone assembled, now. They gathered in the main courtyard, 24 wolves, all watching as a group of strangers was led through the gates. 5 of them, hands bound, looking beaten and exhausted. Rogues, Serafina realized. Wolves without packs. Kale stood on the steps leading up to the main hall, arms crossed, watching the prisoners with cold detachment. These 5 were caught hunting in our territory, he announced, his voice carrying easily. They knew the rules. They broke them anyway. One of the rogues, a man with a scar bisecting his face, spat blood onto the stones. We were starving. You Shadowland wolves hoard everything, leave nothing for the rest of us. And yet you survived long enough to poach from me, Kyle said. Impressive. The scarred man glared. Kill us then. Get it over with. Kale tilted his head. Oh, I'm not going to kill you. He gestured to Lyra. She is, along with her trainees. Serafina's blood went cold. Lyra stepped forward, selecting 4 wolves from the crowd. Then her gaze landed on Serafina. You too, Stray. Serafina's mouth went dry. What? You heard me. Lyra tossed her a blade, short, wicked looking. Pick one. Serafina caught the blade clumsily, staring at it. You want me to execute a trespasser? Yes. Lyra's smile was cruel. Unless you're too weak for that too. The courtyard went silent. Serafina looked at the prisoners. They stared back, resigned, exhausted. The scarred man met her eyes and she saw no plea there, just acceptance. Her hand shook. I can't, she whispered. Then you're useless, Lyra said flatly. Serafina, Kale's voice cut through the haze. She looked up, found him watching her with that unreadable expression. This is the Shadowlands. Mercy is a luxury. Hesitation gets you killed. Choose. I didn't sign up for this. You didn't sign up for anything, Kale said. You collapsed in my forest and I chose to keep you, but if you want to stay, you follow our laws, just like everyone else. Serafina's chest tightened. She looked around, at the wolves watching her with contempt, at Lyra's cold smile, at the prisoners who'd already accepted their fate. Do it, the scarred man said quietly. Better a quick death than rot in a cell. Serafina's grip tightened on the blade. She could feel everyone waiting, testing her. This is what they want. They want me to break, to prove I don't belong. Her hand stopped shaking. She stepped forward. The scarred man closed his eyes. Serafina raised the blade and hurled it into the ground at Kyle's feet. The courtyard erupted. What the hell? She refuses. Insubordination. Kale raised one hand and silence fell instantly. He looked down at the blade, then back at Serafina. Explain, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Serafina lifted her chin, heart hammering. You want me to follow your laws? Fine. But don't dress up murder as justice. These wolves were starving. They took what they needed to survive. If that's a crime, then half this court is guilty. You're out of line, Lyra snarled. Am I? Serafina turned to face her. You want me to be strong? To claim power? Then I'm claiming the right to question orders that don't make sense. They trespassed, and they'll do it again if you kill them, Serafina interrupted. Because you're not solving the problem. You're just feeding the cycle. Kyle descended the steps slowly, each footfall echoing like a death knell. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You think you know better than me? He asked softly. I think killing them is a waste, Serafina said, forcing her voice steady. Put them to work. Make them earn their place. You've got enemies, right? Use them. Kale stared at her for a long, terrible moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he smiled. Interesting. He turned to Lyra. Release them. Put them on boundary patrol. If they run, hunt them down. If they stay, they eat. Lyra looked stunned. You're actually listening to her? I'm testing a theory, Kale said. He glanced back at Serafina, something dark and approving flickering in his gaze. Let's see if she's right. The prisoners were led away and the crowd dispersed, murmuring. Serafina stood frozen, adrenaline still buzzing through her veins. Kyle leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. That was either very brave or very stupid, he murmured. I haven't decided which yet. Does it matter? Not really. His hand brushed her shoulder, barely a touch, but it sent heat racing down her spine. But now the entire court knows you're not afraid to challenge me. That makes you dangerous. To you, Kale's smile sharpened. To everyone. He walked away, leaving Serafina standing in the empty courtyard, her heart still racing. And for the first time since arriving in the Shadowlands, she felt something other than fear. She felt alive. The fallout was immediate. By nightfall, half the court wanted her head. The other half just wanted her gone. Serafina heard the whispers everywhere she went. In the hallways, the training yard, even outside her door late at night when she was supposed to be sleeping. She disrespected the king in front of everyone. Made him look weak. Who does she think she is? Lyra cornered her 3 days later in the armory, slamming the door shut hard enough to rattle the weapons on the walls. You've got a death wish, Lyra said, blocking the exit. That's the only explanation. Serafina didn't look up from the blade she was sharpening. If you're here to threaten me, get in line. I'm here to warn you. Lyra crossed her arms, her ice blue eyes sharp. You embarrassed the king, in public, in front of his entire court. Do you have any idea what that means? It means I'm still breathing, so he must not care that much. He cares. Lyra's voice dropped. He just hasn't decided how to respond yet. And when he does? She leaned in. You'd better hope he's feeling merciful. Serafina finally looked up, meeting Lyra's gaze. He brought me here to see if I'd fight back. I fought back. If he didn't want that, he shouldn't have baited me. Lyra stared at her for a long moment, then let out a short, bitter laugh. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't some game where you get points for bravery. This is survival, and you just painted a target on your back so big, even the blind could see it. Then I'll deal with it. How? You can barely hold your own in training. What happens when someone decides to settle this outside the yard? When they come for you in the dark, Serafina's grip tightened on the blade. Then I guess I'll find out if I'm as weak as everyone thinks. Lyra studied her, something unreadable flickering across her face. Then she shook her head. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the dumbest. I genuinely can't tell. She pushed off the wall, heading for the door. Watch your back, Stray. Not everyone here fights fair. The door slammed shut behind her, and Serafina was alone again. She went back to sharpening the blade, but her hands were shaking. Lyra was right. They came for her 4 nights later. Serafina woke to the sound of her door creaking open. Too slow, too deliberate to be innocent. She lay perfectly still, eyes cracked just enough to see 3 figures slip into the room. Wolves. She recognized their shapes from training, though she couldn't make out faces in the darkness. Sleeping like the dead, one of them muttered. This'll be easy. Make it hurt, another whispered. Teach her what happens when you disrespect the king. Serafina's pulse hammered in her ears, but she kept her breathing slow and even. Waited until they were close enough that she could smell the sweat and aggression rolling off them. Then she moved. She rolled off the bed just as the first one lunged, grabbed the blade she'd hidden under her pillow, and slashed upward. The wolf yelped, stumbling back, clutching his arm. She's awake! No kidding, Serafina spat, scrambling to her feet. Her room was small, cramped. Bad for maneuvering, but worse for them. 3 against 1 in tight quarters meant they'd get in each other's way. She hoped. The second wolf came at her fast, claws out, and Serafina ducked low, driving her shoulder into his stomach. He grunted, and she used the momentum to shove him into the third one. They tangled together, cursing. You're dead, the first one snarled, blood dripping from his arm. You hear me? Dead. Get in line, Serafina shot back, though her voice shook. He lunged, and she barely got her blade up in time. Metal screeched against claws, sparks flying. He was stronger, way stronger, and her arm buckled under the pressure. He shoved her back into the wall, and pain exploded across her shoulders. Thought you were tough, he hissed, his face inches from hers. Thought you could challenge the king and walk away. Big mistake. Serafina's vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. His claws were at her throat, pressing just hard enough to draw blood. Then something inside her snapped. Heat flooded her veins, sudden, violent, like a dam breaking. Her skin burned, her bones ached, and for a split second she saw red. She screamed, and the sound was wrong, too deep, too feral. The wolf staggered back, eyes wide. What the? Serafina didn't give him time to finish. She lashed out, and her fist connected with his jaw so hard she heard bone crack. He dropped like a stone. The other 2 froze, staring at her. What are you? One of them whispered. Serafina looked down at her hands. They were glowing, faint, but unmistakable. Veins of silver light traced up her arms, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She had no idea what it was, but it scared the hell out of her. Get out! She rasped. They didn't need to be told twice. They grabbed their unconscious friend and bolted, leaving Serafina alone in the wreckage of her room. She sank to the floor, trembling, staring at her hands as the light slowly faded. What's happening to me? She whispered. No one answered. Thus, word spread fast. By morning, the entire court knew. The stray had fought off 3 wolves alone. The stray had done something, used some kind of power that no one could explain. Serafina spent the day avoiding everyone, trying to process what had happened. But the whispers followed her everywhere. Did you see her hands? Some kind of magic? She's cursed. Has to be. Mira found her hiding in the library, a dusty, forgotten corner where Serafina hoped no one would think to look. So, Mira said, plopping down beside her, you glowed. Serafina groaned, pressing her hands against her face. I don't want to talk about it. Too bad. Everyone else is. Mira nudged her shoulder. What happened? I don't know. Serafina's voice came out muffled. They attacked me, and I got angry, and then something happened. My hands lit up, and I felt... She struggled to find the words. Like something inside me woke up. Mira was quiet for a moment. Then, have you ever felt anything like that before? Serafina thought back, to her old pack, to the years of being called weak, to the rejection. No. Never. Interesting. Mira chewed her lip, thinking, there are stories, old ones, about wolves with power that goes beyond shifting, elemental magic, blood magic, stuff that's supposed to be extinct. You think I have magic? I think you have something. Mira's expression turned serious. And if the court's scared of you now, wait until they figure out what it is. Serafina's stomach twisted. I don't even know how to control it. Then you'd better learn fast. Mira stood, brushing dust off her pants. Because scared wolves do stupid things, and if they think you're a threat... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Kale summoned her that afternoon. Serafina stood outside his study, heart pounding, trying to decide if running would be worse than facing him. But before she could make up her mind, the door swung open. Come in, Kael's voice called, before you wear a hole in the floor. She stepped inside, keeping her distance. Kael sat behind his desk, paper spread out in front of him, but his attention was entirely on her. You've been busy, he said. They attacked me first. I know. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. 3 wolves with a grudge and a poor sense of timing. They've been dealt with. Serafina blinked. Dealt with? Banished. No one touches what's mine without permission. His eyes gleamed. Though I'm more interested in what you did to them. I didn't mean to. I don't care if you meant to. Kael stood, rounding the desk with that predatory grace that made her instincts scream. I care that you did it, that you have power I didn't know about. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back. Show me. I can't. Try. I don't know how. Frustration bled into her voice. It just happened. I was angry and scared and it came out. I don't even know what it is. Kael's gaze sharpened. You felt threatened and your body responded. That's instinct. Survival. He reached out, catching her wrist, and turned her hand over. His thumb traced the line of her veins, where the light had been. This is old magic. The kind that's supposed to be dead. How do you know? Because I've seen it before. His grip tightened just slightly. Once. A long time ago. And the wolf who had it nearly destroyed an entire kingdom before she was stopped. Serafina's blood ran cold. You think I'm going to I think you're dangerous, Kael said bluntly, and I think you have no idea how dangerous, which makes you either a weapon or a liability. I haven't decided which yet. She tried to pull her hand back, but he held fast. Let me go. Not until you understand something. His voice dropped, deadly serious. This power, it's going to draw attention, not just from my court, but from outside. There are wolves, packs, kingdoms who would kill for what you have, or kill you to make sure no one else gets it. Then why keep me here? Serafina demanded. Why not just get rid of me yourself? Kael's smile was sharp and dangerous. Because I don't waste potential. He released her wrist, stepping back. You're going to learn to control it, and you're going to do it fast, because if you lose control here, in the middle of my court, his eyes locked onto hers. I won't hesitate to put you down. The words hung in the air, cold and final. Serafina's hands curled into fists. Is that all? No. Kael moved back to his desk, pulling out a leather-bound book and tossing it to her. She caught it clumsily. Study that. It's incomplete, but it might help. And Serafina? He looked up, expression unreadable. Don't make me regret keeping you alive. She left without another word, clutching the book to her chest. The book was useless, or at least mostly useless. Half the pages were torn out, the rest written in a language Serafina barely recognized. But there were diagrams, symbols, shapes that seemed to pulse when she looked at them too long. She spent 3 days trying to decipher it, growing more frustrated by the hour. Mira found her in the library again, surrounded by crumpled notes and half-drunk tea. "You look like hell," Mira observed. "Thanks. Any progress?" "None." Serafina shoved the book away. "I can't read half of this, and the parts I can read don't make sense. It keeps talking about awakening the blood and embracing the void, which sounds like a great way to die horribly." Mira picked up the book, flipping through it. "This is old. Like ancient old. Where did Kyle even find this?" "No idea, and he's not exactly forthcoming with details." "Shocking." Mira set the book down, her expression thoughtful. "You know, there might be another way." "I'm listening." "The old ruins, north of here, past the boundary line. They say it used to be a sanctuary for wolves with power like yours, before the purge." Serafina frowned. "What purge?" "Couple hundred years ago, wolves with elemental magic were hunted down, killed or driven into hiding. The sanctuaries were destroyed, the knowledge buried. But there might still be something there. Artifacts, texts, something that could help. Kyle would never let me leave. So don't ask." Mira leaned in, lowering her voice. "Go at night. I'll cover for you. You'll be back before anyone notices." Serafina stared at her. "Why are you helping me?" Mira's smile was sad. "Because I know what it's like to be different. To have people look at you like you're a problem that needs solving." She squeezed Serafina's hand. "You deserve answers. And if Kyle won't give them to you, find them yourself." Serafina left 3 nights later, slipping out through the east gate when the guard rotation changed. The forest swallowed her immediately, dark and suffocating, but she pushed forward. The ruins were exactly where Mira said they'd be, crumbling stone structures half reclaimed by vines and moss. Serafina picked her way through carefully, searching for anything useful. She found it in what must have once been a library. Stone tablets lined the walls, covered in the same symbols from Kael's book, but here they were complete. Whole. Serafina traced her fingers over one, and it lit up, just like her hands had. She jerked back, heart racing, but the light didn't fade. It pulsed, brighter and brighter, and suddenly the entire room was glowing. Then the symbols started moving. They lifted off the stone, swirling through the air like living things, and Serafina stumbled backward, panic clawing at her throat. "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop." The symbols converged, rushing toward her, and she screamed, and they slammed into her chest. Pain, white-hot, all-consuming. It felt like her body was being torn apart and stitched back together, every nerve on fire. She collapsed, gasping, vision swimming, and then she heard it. A voice. Not hers. Not anyone's. "You are the last." Serafina's eyes snapped open. "Who? You carry the bloodline of the void, the power to create and destroy, to command darkness and light, but power without control is annihilation." "I don't understand." "You will, or you will burn." The voice faded, and the light died, plunging the room back into darkness. Serafina lay on the cold stone floor, trembling, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know how long she stayed there, but when she finally dragged herself to her feet and stumbled back toward the Shadow Keep, something had changed. She could feel it, the power, coiled tight beneath her skin, waiting. Not chaotic anymore. Not wild. Controlled. Hers. Outcast. She made it back just before dawn, slipping through the gate and heading straight for her room. But Kael was waiting. He stood in the hallway outside her door, arms crossed, expression dark. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. Serafina's mind raced. "Training." "At 3 in the morning, outside the boundary?" He stepped closer, and she could see the anger simmering in his eyes. "Don't lie to me, Serafina." She lifted her chin. "I went looking for answers." "And did you find them?" "Yes." "Good." His hand shot out, grabbing her arm, and he hauled her close. "Because we have a problem. A messenger arrived an hour ago from the Northern Reach. They've heard rumors. About a wolf with old magic. And they're coming to verify." Serafina's blood turned to ice. "When?" 2 days. Kael's grip tightened. "And if they decide you're a threat, they'll take you, or kill you. Either way, you're not staying here." "I can fight." "Not them. They're hunters, Serafina. trained specifically to kill wolves like you." He released her, stepping back. "Which means we have 48 hours to decide what to do with you." "You mean kill me?" "I mean protect you." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding through. "But I can't do that if you keep running off on your own." Serafina's hands curled into fists. "I didn't ask for your protection." "No. You asked for a chance, and I gave you one. But that chance comes with conditions." He turned to leave, then paused. "Stay in the keep. Don't go anywhere alone. And if those hunters show up—" His eyes met hers, hard and unyielding. "You do exactly what I say. Understand?" She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she didn't need saving, but the fear in his eyes, barely hidden, but there, stopped her. "Understood," she whispered. Kael nodded once, then disappeared down the hall. Serafina stood alone in the darkness, the weight of what was coming pressing down on her like a physical thing. 2 days. She looked down at her hands, steady now, the power humming just beneath the surface. If they wanted a fight, she'd give them one. But she wouldn't go down easy, not this time. The bruises from the trial hadn't fully faded when whispers started creeping through the keep. Serafina heard them everywhere, in the training yard, the dining hall, even outside her door late at night when exhaustion should have claimed her, but sleep refused to come. She got lucky. Garrick went easy on her. Next time she won't be so fortunate. But there were other whispers too, quieter ones, more dangerous. "Did you see what she did to those shadows? That kind of control's out. I've never seen anything like it. Maybe the king knows what he's doing after all." Serafina tried to ignore them all. She kept her head down, trained harder than ever, and focused on mastering the power that had saved her life. Because deep down, she knew they were right about one thing. She'd gotten lucky. One slip, one moment of lost control, and Garrick would have torn her apart. The hunters would have dragged her away in chains. And Kael. She didn't want to think about what Kael would have done. The morning after the trial, Lyra found her in the training yard before dawn, running through forms with a practiced sword. Sweat already soaked through her shirt despite the cold air. Her muscles ached, but she pushed through it. "You're up early," Lyra observed, leaning against a post. "Couldn't sleep." "Nightmares?" Serafina slashed through the air, the blade whistling. "Something like that." Lyra watched her for a moment, then pushed off the post and stepped into the ring. "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." "Too bad." Lyra grabbed a practiced sword of her own. "Because we're going to, while we spar." They circled each other, and Serafina struck first. A testing blow that Lyra deflected easily. The clang of wood on wood echoed across the empty yard. "You're thinking too much," Lyra said, countering with a strike that Serafina barely blocked. "I can see it in your eyes. You're replaying the trial over and over." "So what if I am?" "So you need to let it go." Lyra pressed forward, forcing Serafina back. "You won. That's what matters." "I almost lost control." Serafina ducked under a swing, pivoted, and came up with her own strike. "1 second longer, and I would have—" "But you didn't." Lyra knocked her blade aside, then stepped back. "That's the point. When it mattered most, you held it together. That takes strength. Or luck. Maybe both." Lyra lowered her sword, studying her. "But I've trained a lot of wolves, Serafina, and most of them would have cracked under that pressure. You didn't. Give yourself some credit." Serafina wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Part of her still couldn't believe she'd actually won. That she'd stood in front of the entire court and proved she wasn't the weak, broken thing they thought she was. "The court is starting to respect you," Lyra continued. "Some grudgingly, some genuinely. But respect in the Shadowlands is earned in blood. You've started earning yours." "And Kael?" Lyra's expression shifted, something knowing flickering across her face. "What about him?" "He kissed me. In front of everyone." "I noticed. So did everyone else. Pretty sure they heard it in the next kingdom." "What does that mean?" Serafina hated how uncertain she sounded. "What does he want from me?" Lyra was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Kael doesn't do anything without reason. And he doesn't claim people lightly. If he kissed you in front of the court, it was a statement." "What kind of statement?" "The possessive kind. The 'she's mine, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me' kind." Lyra met her eyes. "You're important to him, Serafina. More than I think even he realizes. Serafina's chest tightened. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything. Just don't run from it. He's not Damon. He won't throw you away when things get difficult. How do you know? Because I've known Kyle for 15 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Like you're the most dangerous thing in the room, and he can't decide if he wants to fight you or claim you. Lyra smiled. Probably both. Before Serafina could respond, a commotion erupted near the main gate. Shouts, running footsteps, the sharp clang of alarm bells splitting the morning air. Lyra's expression hardened immediately. That's not good. They ran together toward the gates, where a crowd had already gathered. A messenger, barely more than a boy, couldn't be older than 16, stumbled through, covered in blood and dirt, his clothes torn to shreds. He collapsed before he'd made it 3 steps. Kyle appeared from nowhere, catching the messenger before he hit the ground. Report. Thornwood Pack, my lord, the boy gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. They attacked our northern scouts, killed 3, wounded 2 more. Said to tell you they're coming. The courtyard went silent. Serafina's blood turned to ice. Her vision tunneled, and for a moment, all she could hear was her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Thornwood. Her old pack. Damon's pack. How many? Kale's voice was deadly calm, but Serafina could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched. 50, maybe 60. Hard to count. They're a day out, maybe less. The boy coughed, more blood flecking his lips. They're asking for the traitor, the wolf with old magic. They said she belongs to them, that you're harboring their property. Every eye in the courtyard turned to Serafina. She stood frozen, her mind racing. Damon was coming for her, after everything, after casting her out, leaving her to die, telling her she was nothing. Now he wanted her back? No, not back. Dead. He wanted her dead because she'd become everything he said she couldn't be. Kyle's voice cut through her panic like a blade. Get him to the infirmary, now. He turned to address the gathered wolves, his voice carrying with absolute authority. Full mobilization. I want every able body armed and ready. Double the wall guards, triple the patrols. No one gets in or out without my permission. Move. The court exploded into motion, wolves scattering to follow orders. The sounds of organized chaos filled the air, weapons being drawn, armor clanging, orders being shouted. Kale's gaze found Serafina across the chaos. My study, now. She followed him through the keep, her legs moving on autopilot. Her mind kept circling back to one thought, over and over like a broken record. Damon was coming, and he wanted her dead. The hallways blurred past. Wolves rushed by them, carrying weapons, shouting orders. The whole keep had transformed into a war machine in minutes. Kale's study was eerily quiet compared to the chaos outside. He closed the door, sealing them in sudden silence, then turned to face her. How did they know? Serafina asked, her voice hollow. How did they find out about my power? Someone talked, either one of Ashrin's hunters or someone in my court with connections to Thornwood. Kale's jaw tightened, fury barely contained beneath the surface. I'll deal with them later. Right now we need to focus on keeping you alive. You could hand me over. No. Kyle, no. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, grabbing her shoulders. His grip was firm, but not painful. I'm not handing you over. I'm not letting them take you. That's not happening. But if I stay, they'll attack. People will die. People die in war. That's the cost. His grip tightened. And I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself because you think you're not worth defending. I'm not worth a war. Yes, you are. His eyes blazed with an intensity that took her breath away. To me, you are. And this is my territory, my decision, so I'm deciding to fight. Serafina stared at him, emotions warring inside her. Part of her wanted to argue, to tell him he was being stupid, risking everything for someone who wasn't worth it. But another part, the part that had been growing stronger since she arrived here, wanted desperately to believe him. What do you need me to do? She asked finally. Something like relief flickered across Kyle's face. Train, prepare, and when they get here, you stay by my side. No heroics, no sacrificing yourself. We face this together. 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 He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heartbeat against her cheek. I'm not losing you, Serafina. Not to them, not to anyone. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, pine and smoke and something uniquely him. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pulled back just enough to tilt her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. But don't let it control you. You're stronger than you think. I hope you're right. I'm always right. Ask anyone. Despite everything, Serafina laughed. It was a small, shaky sound, but genuine. You're impossible. And you're mine. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips, soft and lingering, a promise and a claim. Remember that. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. The keep transformed into a fortress, weapons sharpened, armor checked and rechecked, defensive positions fortified. Every wolf had a role, a station, a purpose. Serafina trained with Lyra and a handful of others, drilling scenarios until her muscles screamed in protest. They ran through defensive formations, practiced responding to different attack patterns, worked on coordination. Again, Lyra barked as Serafina stumbled during a particularly complex maneuver. You hesitate. You die. Move! But it was the time spent with Kael in the ruins that changed everything. They went late in the afternoon when the sun hung low and red over the forest. The ruins felt different now, less abandoned, more alive, like they were waiting for something. Show me what you can do, Kael said, standing in the center of the ancient stones. No holding back. I need to know what we're working with. Serafina hesitated, then closed her eyes and reached for the power. It came easily now, responding to her will like an extension of her own body. Shadows erupted around her, not wild or chaotic, but controlled. She shaped them, molded them, turned them into weapons and shields and barriers that shimmered in the fading light. When she opened her eyes, Kael was staring at her with something between awe and hunger. Again, he said, his voice rough. But this time, think about creation, not destruction. You rebuilt these ruins once. Do it again. Serafina focused, and the shadows shifted. Stone lifted from the ground, reassembling itself like puzzle pieces finding their places. Pillars rose where there had been rubble. Archways formed, elegant and strong, their lines perfect. Good, Kael murmured, circling her slowly. But can you hold it under pressure? Without warning, he attacked. Not with lethal intent, but enough to test her. Serafina's instincts kicked in. The shadows formed a barrier, deflecting his strike. She countered, sending tendrils of darkness toward him that he dodged with inhuman grace. They moved together like dancers, attack and defense flowing seamlessly. Kael pushed her harder, faster, and she met him blow for blow. The power sang through her veins, intoxicating and terrifying. Don't just react, Kael called out, pressing his advantage. Anticipate. Feel where I'm going before I get there. Serafina tried, closing her eyes, letting instinct guide her. And there, she felt it. The shift in his weight, the subtle preparation before he moved. She blocked before he struck, and heard his sharp intake of breath. Yes, he said. Like that. They continued until the sun had fully set and darkness claimed the ruins. Finally, Kael stopped, breathing hard, a smile playing at his lips. Better, much better. How much better? Enough that I think we might actually survive this. He reached out, catching a strand of shadow that still clung to her fingers. It writhed around his hand like a living thing before dissipating. You're magnificent, you know that? Serafina's breath hitched. I'm terrified. That makes two of us. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. But we'll face it together, whatever happens. Whatever happens, she echoed. They stayed in the ruins a while longer, not talking, just being. Serafina memorized the moment, the feel of his arms around her, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way the moonlight caught in his hair. If tomorrow went badly, she wanted to remember this. When they finally returned to the keep, the halls were quiet. Most wolves had turned in early, conserving energy for the battle ahead. That night, Mira brought Serafina a plate of food she couldn't eat and sat with her while she paced her small room like a caged animal. You're going to wear a hole in the floor, Mira observed from her perch on the bed. I can't sit still. I noticed. Mira watched her for a moment, head tilted. Want to talk about it? What's there to talk about? My old pack is coming to kill me, and I'm probably going to die tomorrow. You're not going to die. You don't know that. No, Mira admitted. But I know you, and I know you're not the same girl who showed up here months ago, beaten and broken and ready to give up. You're stronger now, sharper, and you've got something you didn't have before. What's that? People who'll fight for you. Mira stood, crossing to where Serafina had stopped pacing. You're not alone anymore. Remember that. When things get bad tomorrow, and they will get bad, remember that you've got a whole court of wolves who'd rather die than see you dragged back to that hellhole. Serafina's throat tightened. Why? Why do they care? Because you earned it. Because you stood up to hunters when anyone else would have run. Because you showed them that strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and fighting anyway. Mira pulled her into a hug. Now try to get some sleep. You'll need it. But sleep didn't come. Serafina lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the keep preparing for war. Footsteps in the hallways. Distant conversations. The metallic ring of weapons being sharpened. A knock at her door made her sit up. Come in. Kael entered, still fully dressed, looking as tired as she felt. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Couldn't sleep either? Serafina asked. No. He closed the door behind him, then crossed to her bed and sat down. Mind if I stay? Please. He lay down beside her, and Serafina curled into him without thinking. His arms came around her, solid and warm and real. We're going to survive this, Kael said quietly into the darkness. Both of us. You sound certain. I am. Because I'm not ready to lose you, and when I decide something, the universe generally has the sense to agree. Serafina laughed softly against his chest. That's not how the universe works. It is in my experience. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Sleep. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. I'll rest when you do. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her like an undertow. Safe in his arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, sleep finally claimed her. She dreamed of fire and shadows, of fighting and falling, of voices telling her she wasn't enough. But through it all, Kael's voice anchored her, pulling her back from the edge. They came at dawn. Serafina woke to alarm bells and Kael already moving, strapping on weapons with practiced efficiency. The sky outside was still gray with early morning light. They're here, he said, his voice grim. Get dressed, armor, everything we prepared. She moved on autopilot, pulling on the reinforced leather Mira had modified, strapping weapons to her thighs and back. Her hands shook slightly, but she forced them steady. This was it. No more preparing, no more waiting. Kael was at the door waiting. When she joined him, he caught her face in his hands. Remember what I taught you. Stay focused, stay controlled, and stay alive. You too. He kissed her, hard and desperate, then pulled away. Let's end this. They made their way to the battlements, where the entire court had already gathered. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. And there, at the edge of the forest, was the Thornwood pack. Serafina's heart stuttered at the sight. They spread out in formation, at least 60 wolves, all armed and ready. And at their center stood Damon. He looked exactly as she remembered. Cold eyes, sharp features, that air of absolute certainty that he was right and everyone else was wrong. Behind him stood faces she recognized. Sienna, who'd spread the worst rumors about her. Marcus, who'd participated in her beating, who'd broken her ribs and laughed about it. Thorn, who'd been the loudest when Damon severed their bond. They all looked at her like she was already dead. Alpha King Varos, Damon called out, his voice carrying across the distance. We've come for what belongs to us. Hand over the traitor, and we'll leave peacefully. Kael's laugh was cold and sharp. You brought 60 wolves to my doorstep, and you're talking about peace? That's rich. She's Thornwood property. She was Thornwood property, Kael interrupted, his voice dropping into something lethal. You rejected her, cast her out to die, told her she was nothing. You don't get to reclaim what you threw away like garbage. She's dangerous, Damon argued, and Serafina could hear the false concern in his voice. Unstable, a threat to every pack in the region. We're doing everyone a favor by eliminating her. Then that's my problem, not yours. It becomes everyone's problem when she loses control and burns down half the territory. Damon's gaze found Seraphina on the battlements, and his smile was cruel. Hello, Seraphina. Still alive? I'm impressed. Didn't think you had it in you. Seraphina's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at her to unleash the power boiling beneath her skin, to show him exactly how dangerous she'd become. To make him pay for every insult, every beating, every moment of pain. But Kael's hand on her shoulder steadied her. He's baiting you, Kael murmured. Don't give him what he wants. Seraphina forced herself to breathe, to think. Damon wanted her angry, wanted her to lose control, to prove his point that she was dangerous and unstable. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Instead, she stepped forward, addressing Damon directly. Her voice rang out clear and strong across the morning air. You threw me out, she called down. Said I was weak. Not worth the air I breathed, a stain on your pack's bloodline. So why are you here? Why do you care what happens to me now? Because you're a threat. No, I'm proof that you were wrong. Her voice strengthened. I survived what you did to me. I found strength you said I'd never have. I became something you said was impossible, and that scares you. Because if I can rise from what you did to me, what does that say about you? About your judgment? About your precious pack? Murmurs rippled through the Thornwood wolves. Some looked uncertain. Damon's expression darkened. You think you're strong now? You think these shadows make you powerful? You're still the same weak wolf you always were, just with a parlor trick and a king stupid enough to believe you're worth protecting. Then prove it. Face me. One-on-one. Seraphina's heart pounded, but her voice stayed steady. If I'm so weak, you should have no problem putting me down. The courtyard erupted in murmurs from both sides. Kael's grip on her shoulder tightened. What are you doing? Ending this, Seraphina whispered back. On my terms. It's the only way to stop the bloodshed. If I win, they leave. If I lose, you won't lose. But if I do, at least the rest of you survive. Kael looked like he wanted to argue, but Damon's voice cut through. All right, I accept your challenge. His smile was sharp and predatory. But when I win, everyone here watches you die. Slowly. And then we discuss the fate of this kingdom for harboring a threat to all wolfkind. And when I win, Seraphina countered, her voice carrying across both armies, you and your wolves leave, forever. You spread word that Seraphina Duskgrin died in that forest. Because the girl you knew, the weak, broken thing you rejected, she's gone. She died the night you abandoned her. What stands here is something else entirely. Damon's smile widened, but there was something uncertain in his eyes now. Deal. Kael turned her to face him, his expression caught between fury and fear. This is insane. Maybe. But it's the only way to end this without a bloodbath. You know that. He'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe I'll kill him. She met his eyes, willing him to understand. I have to do this, Kael. Not for you, not for the court. For me. I need to face him, to prove to myself that I'm not that scared girl anymore. Kael stared at her for a long moment, conflict warring across his face. Then he nodded slowly. If you die, I'm bringing you back just so I can kill you myself for scaring me. Despite everything, Seraphina smiled. Deal. He pulled her into a fierce kiss, not caring who saw. When he pulled back, he pressed his forehead to hers. Fight dirty, fight mean, and win. I'll do my best. That's all I'm asking. They cleared space in the courtyard, wolves from both sides forming a wide circle. The air crackled with tension. Seraphina descended from the battlements, her heart hammering but her hands steady. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. Damon waited in the center, confident and relaxed, rolling his shoulders like this was just another sparring session. Like she was nothing. Like she'd always been nothing. Last chance to back out, Seraphina, he called out as she approached. Beg for your life, and maybe I'll make it quick. For old time's sake. I'm done begging. Seraphina took her position across from him, 20 feet of packed earth between them. And I'm done being afraid of you. Damon's expression hardened. Your mistake. Lyra stepped into the circle, acting as referee. Rules are simple. Fight until one yields or can't continue. No interference from either side. Death is permitted. She looked between them. Understood? Both nodded. Then begin. The fight started without ceremony. Damon moved first, faster than Serafina remembered, his fist aimed at her face with brutal efficiency. Serafina dodged, shadows already forming around her hands like dark fire. She struck back, and he blocked, but she saw his eyes widen when the shadows connected with his arm. What? She didn't give him time to finish. She pressed forward, using techniques Lyra had drilled into her. Strike, retreat, circle. Keep moving. Don't let him pin you. They traded blows, circling each other like predators. Damon was stronger, more experienced, had years of training she didn't, but Serafina was faster now, sharper. Every lesson from Lyra, every hour of training, every moment of pain had built to this. You've improved, Damon admitted, breathing harder now, but it won't be enough. You're still weak inside, still that pathetic wolf who couldn't defend herself. He lunged, and this time Serafina didn't dodge. She met him head-on, shadows erupting around her like armor. His claws scraped against them, finding no purchase. What the? Serafina drove her fist into his stomach, channeling power into the blow. The impact sent Damon flying backward, crashing into the ground hard enough to crack stone. He rolled, came up gasping, shock replacing his confidence. Impossible. Nothing's impossible, Serafina said, advancing. You just have to want it bad enough. Sienna and Marcus moved toward the circle's edge, but Thornwood wolves held them back. This was between Damon and Serafina now. One-on-one. Damon attacked again, desperate now, all precision gone, just raw fury and fear. Serafina blocked his strikes, countered, the shadows responding to her will like extensions of her body. She wasn't just fighting him with strength, she was fighting him with everything she'd become. He caught her with a lucky shot, his claws raking across her shoulder. Pain exploded, blood flowing hot. But Serafina barely felt it. She was beyond pain now, beyond fear. She grabbed his arm, twisted, and used his momentum to slam him into the ground. Her hand came to his throat, shadows forming a blade that hovered inches from his skin. The courtyard went absolutely silent. Serafina stared down at Damon, at the man who'd broken her heart, shattered her spirit, left her to die. The power begged her to finish it, to end him, to prove once and for all that she was stronger, that he'd been wrong about her. But Kael's words echoed in her head. Control isn't about power. It's about choice. Serafina pulled the shadow blade back, dissipating it into mist. You're not worth it. She stood, stepping away from him. Blood dripped from her shoulder, but she ignored it. Get up, take your wolves, and leave. Damon struggled to his feet, clutching his throat, his eyes filled with something between rage and fear and disbelief. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Serafina's voice was cold, final. Go back to Thornwood. Tell them Serafina Duskgrin died in that forest. And tell them something else. If any of you come back here, if any of you threaten what's mine again, I won't stop at mercy. I'll burn Thornwood to the ground and salt the earth so nothing ever grows there again. The threat hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Damon stared at her for a long moment, then signaled his wolves. They retreated, broken and humiliated, disappearing into the forest like ghosts. The Shadowland wolves erupted in cheers that shook the very walls. Serafina stood in the center of the courtyard, still processing what had happened. She'd won. She'd actually won. The adrenaline started to drain, and her legs wobbled. Kael was there instantly, catching her before she could fall, pulling her into his arms. His face pressed into her hair, and she felt him trembling. Don't ever do that to me again, he said, his voice rough. Which part? All of it. He pulled back, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. You magnificent, terrifying, incredible woman. I'm going to kiss you now, and I don't care who's watching. Then he kissed her in front of everyone, deep and claiming and desperate. And this time the court's cheers were deafening. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lyra was grinning. Not bad, Stray. Not bad at all. Mira pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her face, and threw her arms around both of them. I thought you were going to die. I know, Serafina said, holding her friend tight. But I didn't. I'm here. I'm okay. And as she looked around at the wolves who'd become her family, she realized something profound. She wasn't the broken girl who'd been left to die in that forest. She was someone new, someone stronger, someone who'd finally found where she belonged. The days following the trial felt strange, almost normal. Serafina still trained, still pushed herself until her muscles screamed, but something fundamental had shifted. The wolves who used to sneer now watched with wary respect. The ones who'd whispered about her being weak now gave her space when she walked by. Lyra still beat her bloody in the training yard, but afterward she'd offer a hand up. Sometimes even a nod that felt almost like approval. "You're getting better," Lyra said one afternoon, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Still sloppy, still too emotional, but better." Serafina spat blood into the dirt. "I'll take it. Don't let it go to your head. One win doesn't make you invincible." Lyra's expression turned serious. "The hunters will be back. Maybe not Ashrin, but someone. And next time they won't play fair. Let them come." Lyra studied her, then shook her head. "You've changed. When you first got here, you looked like you wanted to disappear. Now you look like you want to burn the world down." Serafina smiled, sharp and bitter. "Maybe I do." "Good." Lyra clapped her on the shoulder. The world could use more burning. But it wasn't just training that felt different. It was everything. Kale stopped avoiding her. If anything, he sought her out, sitting with her during meals, walking with her through the keep's halls, pulling her into his study to talk strategy or just to argue about nothing. He never mentioned the kiss directly, but the weight of it hung between them, unspoken and electric. Serafina didn't know what they were, didn't know what he wanted from her. But when he looked at her like she was the most dangerous thing in the room and he couldn't look away, she stopped caring about labels. Mira cornered her in the library one evening, grinning like she knew a secret. "So," Mira said, dropping into the chair across from Serafina. "You and the king." Serafina didn't look up from the book she was reading. "There's no me and the king." "Liar. I saw him kiss you. The whole court saw him kiss you." "That was a moment. Heat of the moment. Doesn't mean anything." Mira laughed. "Keep telling yourself that. Meanwhile, he's been tearing through anyone who so much as looks at you wrong. Yesterday, Marcus made a joke about you during training, and Kael nearly ripped his head off. Literally." Serafina's cheeks flushed. "He's protective, that's all." "Sure, protective. That's definitely the word for it." Mira leaned forward, her expression softening. "Look, I know you're scared. I know you've been burned before. But Kael's not Damon. He doesn't throw people away when they get difficult. If anything, he likes difficult, thrives on it." "I don't know what I'm doing," Serafina admitted quietly. I don't know how to do this." "None of us do. We just figure it out as we go." Mira squeezed her hand. "But for what it's worth, I think you're good for him. He's been alone for so long, and then you showed up and turned everything upside down. It's been entertaining as hell." Serafina couldn't help but smile. "Glad I could provide entertainment." "Always." Mira stood, stretching. "Just don't overthink it. Let it happen. See where it goes." Easy for her to say. Mira hadn't spent years being told she wasn't enough, hadn't been rejected by the one person who was supposed to love her unconditionally. But maybe that was the point. Maybe she needed to stop letting the past dictate her future. That night, Kael found her on the battlements, staring out at the forest. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. "Too much in my head." "Want to talk about it?" Serafina glanced at him, then back at the trees. "What are we doing?" "Walking on a battlement. Poorly lit, I might add. Someone should really—" "Kael." He sighed, leaning against the stone wall. "I don't know. What do you want us to be doing?" "That's not an answer. Neither is your question." He turned to face her fully. "You want me to define this? Put a label on it? I can do that. But I'd rather know what you want first." Serafina's throat tightened. "I want to know if this is real, or if I'm just convenient. Someone you claimed because you could." Kael's expression darkened. "You think I kiss people because they're convenient? I think you're an alpha king who does what he wants, when he wants." "You're right. I do." He moved closer, and she could feel the heat radiating off him. "And what I want is you. Not because you're convenient, not because I claimed you, but because when I look at you, I see someone who refused to break even when the entire world told her she should. Someone who stood in front of trained hunters and didn't flinch. Someone who makes me want to be better than the ruthless bastard everyone thinks I am. Serafina's breath caught. Kyle, I'm not good at this, he continued, his voice rough. I don't do feelings well, but I know that every time you're in danger, I feel like someone's ripping my heart out. I know that when you smile, really smile, not that bitter thing you do when you're trying to hide, it's the best part of my day. And I know that if you walked away tomorrow, it would destroy me. Serafina stared at him, emotions crashing through her. You can't just say things like that. Why not? Because it makes it real, and real things can hurt. They can also be worth it. He reached up, cupping her face. But only if you let them be. Serafina closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm terrified. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of wanting something this much. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. What if I'm not enough? What if... Kale kissed her, cutting off the spiral of doubt. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You're more than enough. You always have been. Everyone else was just too blind to see it. Including you? Especially me. I should have told you weeks ago, but I'm an idiot. Serafina laughed, the sound wet and shaky. Yeah, you are. So are we doing this? What exactly is this? Everything, you and me. Building something real. Serafina's heart hammered in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to protect herself, to not give anyone the power to hurt her again. But she was tired of running. Okay, she whispered. Let's do this. Kael's smile was blinding. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, and Serafina let herself fall into it. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. 3 weeks later, everything changed again. It started with a messenger stumbling through the gates, half dead and bleeding. Serafina was in the courtyard when they brought him in, and she heard his gasping words before anyone could drag him away. Thornwood Pack! Attacked our scouts! They're coming! Her blood turned to ice. Kael appeared within minutes, barking orders, and the keep erupted into controlled chaos. Wolves armed themselves, formed ranks, prepared for siege. Serafina stood frozen, her mind reeling. Thornwood. Her old pack. Damon's pack. They were coming here. Kael found her by the armory, staring at nothing. Serafina. She didn't respond. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. I need you focused. Can you do that? Why are they coming? Her voice came out hollow. Why now? Because someone told them about you. Kael's jaw tightened. About your power. And Damon's decided you're a threat that needs eliminating. Of course. Of course it was Damon. The man who'd rejected her, thrown her away like garbage, now wanted her dead because she dared to survive. Rage, hot and vicious, flooded her veins. How many? She asked. 50, maybe more. Kael's hands tightened on her shoulders. Listen to me. When they get here, you stay inside. You don't engage. No. Serafina. No. She met his eyes, unflinching. I'm not hiding. Not from him. Not anymore. This isn't about pride. You're damn right it's not. It's about ending this. She pulled free, her hands already starting to glow. He threw me out to die. Now he's coming to finish the job. I'm not letting him walk away this time. Kael stared at her, conflict warring in his expression. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll die fighting. Something shifted in Kael's gaze, resignation mixed with something that looked almost like pride. All right, but you follow my lead, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded anyway. Get armed. They'll be here within the hour. Serafina suited up, leather armor that Mira had modified for her, weapons strapped to her thighs and back. Her hands shook as she tightened the straps, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. Mira appeared at her side, pressing a vial into her hand. Healing tonic, in case things go south. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, just don't die, okay? I've gotten used to having you around. Serafina managed to smile. I'll do my best. That's all I'm asking. Mira hesitated, then pulled her into a quick hug. You're the bravest person I know. Don't forget that. Serafina's throat tightened. I won't. She met Kael on the battlements as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. The entire court stood ready, weapons gleaming, faces grim. This was it. The moment that would define everything. There, Call, Kael said, pointing to the tree line. Serafina followed his gaze and saw them, shapes moving through the forest, too many to count. Her stomach twisted, but she forced herself to breathe. The thornwood wolves broke through the trees, spreading out in formation, and at their center, leading them, was Damon. He looked exactly the same. Sharp features, cold eyes, the arrogance of a man who'd never been told no. The sight of him made Serafina's chest tighten, memories flooding back. The rejection, the pain, the feeling of being thrown away like trash. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She'd survived, grown stronger, become something he couldn't have imagined. Beside Damon walked 3 wolves she recognized, her former packmates. Sienna, who'd spread rumors about her. Marcus, who'd participated in the beating that left her ribs broken. And Thorn, who'd laughed the loudest when Damon severed the bond. They all looked so certain, so confident that this would end with her in chains or dead. Damon stepped forward, his voice carrying across the distance. Alpha King Varos, we've come for the traitor you're harboring. Hand her over and we'll leave peacefully. Kael's laugh was dark and humorless. You rode 50 wolves to my doorstep and you're talking about peace? Try again. She's Thornwood property. She was Thornwood property, Kael interrupted, his voice dropping into something lethal. You rejected her, cast her out. You don't get to reclaim what you threw away. Damon's expression darkened. She's dangerous, unstable. It's only a matter of time before she loses control and destroys everything around her, including you. Then that's my problem, not yours. It becomes everyone's problem when she burns down half the territory. Damon's gaze found Serafina on the battlements, and his smile was cold. Hello, Serafina. Miss me? Serafina's pulse pounded in her ears. She wanted to scream at him, wanted to unleash every ounce of rage she'd been holding back. But Kael's hand on her shoulder steadied her. Don't give him what he wants, Kael murmured. He's trying to provoke you. It's working. I know, but you're stronger than this, stronger than him. Serafina took a shaky breath, forcing the power back down, not suppressing it, controlling it. She stepped to the edge of the battlement, looking down at Damon. Her voice rang out, clear and strong. You want me? Come get me. Damon's smile widened. With pleasure. He raised his hand and the Thornwood wolves surged forward. Kael's forces met them head-on, and the courtyard exploded into chaos. Claws and teeth and blades, wolves crashing together in brutal combat. The sound was deafening, snarls, screams, metal on metal. Serafina leaped down from the battlements, landing hard, and immediately a Thornwood wolf was on her. She blocked his strike, drove her blade into his shoulder, and shoved him back. Another came at her from the side, and she spun, shadows erupting from her hands to knock him off his feet. The power flowed through her now, not wild or uncontrolled, but deliberate. She'd learned to channel it, to make it an extension of herself rather than something separate. She was vaguely aware of Kael fighting nearby, a whirlwind of lethal precision, wolves falling before him like wheat before a scythe. But her focus was singular. Find Damon. She cut through the crowd, taking hits, dealing them back. A blade caught her arm, drawing blood, but she barely felt it. Another wolf grabbed her from behind and she threw him over her shoulder, slamming him into the ground. Until she saw him. Damon stood at the edge of the battle, watching, like this was all some kind of game. Like these were pieces on a board and he was moving them for his amusement. Their eyes met across the chaos, and something cold and vicious settled in Serafina's chest. She ran at him, fury propelling her forward, and Damon's smile never wavered. He caught her wrist mid-strike, twisting until she gasped in pain. Still weak, still predictable. She drove her knee into his stomach and he grunted, releasing her. She stumbled back, panting, and the power roared inside her, begging for release. You threw me out, Serafina said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. Told me I was nothing, left me to die in that forest. Because you were nothing, Damon said, circling her like a predator. A liability. Dead weight. the weakest wolf I'd ever had the misfortune of being bonded to. And now you're a threat. Which is worse? He lunged, and they collided, trading blows. You should have stayed dead, Serafina. Would have made everyone's life easier. Including yours? Especially mine. The words hit harder than any physical blow. But Serafina didn't let them break her. Not this time. She was stronger now, not just physically, but in every way that mattered. They fought viciously, neither giving ground. He was stronger, faster, had years more training, but Serafina was angrier. Every hit she landed felt like vindication. Every time he faltered, she pushed harder. Sienna appeared from nowhere, diving at Serafina's blind spot. Stay down this time! Serafina spun, catching Sienna's arm and using her momentum to throw her into Marcus. They crashed together in a tangle of limbs. 3-on-1? Serafina called out, breathing hard. That's the Thornwood way, isn't it? Only fight when you outnumber your opponent. It's called being smart, Thorn snarled, circling with the others. Something you never were. They attacked together, coordinated, practiced. Serafina blocked, dodged, her body moving on pure instinct. A blade caught her ribs, pain exploding through her side. She gasped, stumbling. Damon was there, his fist connecting with her jaw. Stars exploded across her vision. She hit the ground hard, tasted copper. See? Damon said, standing over her. Still weak. Still nothing. But Serafina wasn't listening anymore. She was remembering every insult, every beating, every time they'd told her she didn't belong, that she wasn't good enough, that she should just give up and die. And she was tired. So tired of their voices in her head. The power surged, wild, uncontrolled, desperate. Do it, Damon hissed, his hand closing around her throat. Lose control. Prove me right. Show everyone you're exactly the monster I said you were. And for a moment, she almost did. The shadows exploded outward, wrapping around Damon, around Sienna and Marcus and Thorn, burning them, and they screamed, raw, agonized sounds that should have brought her satisfaction. But then she saw them. Kael, fighting 3 wolves at once, blood streaking his face, his eyes finding hers across the chaos. Lyra, dragging a wounded soldier to safety, her own leg bleeding but still fighting. Mira, covering someone with her own body, eyes squeezed shut but refusing to move. People who'd given her a chance, who'd believed she could be more than what she was, who'd seen something in her worth protecting, people who'd become family. Serafina closed her eyes, focused on their faces, on the home she'd built here, and pulled the power back. Not all at once. Slowly, deliberately, like Kael had taught her. The shadows receded and Damon collapsed beside her, gasping and burned but alive. Sienna and the others lay scattered around them, groaning. Serafina dragged herself to her feet, standing over Damon. Her entire body shook, blood dripping from various wounds, but her voice was steady. I'm not the monster you made me out to be, she said quietly, but I'm not weak either. She leaned down, her voice dropping to something cold and final. And if you ever come back here, if you ever threaten what's mine again, I won't pull my punches. I'll burn you until there's nothing left but ash and regret. Damon stared up at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. Get out, Serafina said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet battlefield. Take your wolves and get out. And tell anyone who asks that Serafina Duskgrin died in that forest. Because the girl you rejected, she's gone. What's standing here is something you could never break. Damon scrambled to his feet, clutching his burned arm. He looked around at his remaining wolves, many wounded, all watching Serafina with a mix of fear and awe. This isn't over, Damon spat. Yes, it is, Serafina said. You just don't know it yet. He signaled to his wolves and they retreated, limping and broken, disappearing back into the forest. The Shadowland wolves didn't pursue. They just watched them go, silent and victorious. The battle was over. Serafina stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by the wounded and the exhausted, and felt something inside her finally settle. It was over. Really, truly over. Kael was there suddenly, his hands on her face, checking for injuries. Blood streaked his armor, a cut above his eye still bleeding, but his focus was entirely on her. You're hurt. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I'm fine, she repeated, catching his wrists. Kael, I'm fine. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Don't ever do that to me again. Do what? Make me watch you almost die. His voice cracked slightly. I can't lose you. Serafina's chest tightened, emotion flooding through her. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. You won't. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me. I promise. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and relieved, and Serafina melted into it, exhaustion and adrenaline and something deeper tangling together. When they finally pulled apart, Kael rested his forehead against hers. You're mine. Say it. I'm yours. And I'm yours. I know. He smiled, genuine and soft, and so unlike the ruthless king everyone else saw. Good. Around them, the Shadowland wolves began to cheer. It started quietly, then built into a roar that echoed off the keep's walls. Serafina looked around, seeing respect in eyes that had once held only contempt, seeing acceptance where there had been rejection. Lyra appeared, limping but grinning. Not bad, Stray, not bad at all. Thanks. Don't let it go to your head. You still fight like you're angry at the world. Maybe I am. Then channel it better, but... Lyra's expression softened. You did good today. Really good. Mira pushed through the crowd, throwing her arms around Serafina despite the blood and dirt. You scared me half to death. Sorry. Don't apologize. Just don't do it again. Mira pulled back, tears streaking through the grime on her face. I thought I was going to lose you. Not that easy to kill, Serafina said, managing a smile. Apparently not. The weeks that followed were a blur of rebuilding and recovering. The keep slowly returned to normal, wounds healing, defenses strengthened. But something had fundamentally changed. The court looked at Serafina differently now, not as an outsider or a threat, but as one of them. Someone who'd stood and fought and bled for the Shadowlands. Someone who belonged. And through it all, Serafina trained, not just in combat, but in control. She spent hours in the ruins, learning from the tablets, mastering the power that had once terrified her. Kael was there most days, watching, guiding, challenging her. You're holding back, he said one afternoon, circling her in the ruins. Stop being afraid of it. I'm not afraid. Yes, you are. You're terrified you'll hurt someone, that you'll become the monster they said you were. He stopped in front of her, eyes intense. But fear is what makes you lose control, not power. Serafina stared at him, then closed her eyes and let go. The shadows exploded outward, wrapping around the ruins, reshaping them, building and destroying and creating all at once. It was chaos and beauty and terrifying, and Serafina stood at the center of it, unflinching. Stone lifted and reformed, vines withered and regrew. The very air seemed to bend to her will. When she finally pulled it back, the ruins had changed. Rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. Archways that hadn't existed now framed the sky. Pillars stood where there had been rubble. Kael stepped forward, touching the newly formed stone, his expression awed. This is what you're capable of. Creation, not just destruction. Serafina looked at her hands, then at the transformed ruins. I did that? You did that. I'm not weak. No, you're not. I never was. I know. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. I've known since the moment I found you in that forest. Weak wolves don't survive what you survived. Weak wolves don't fight back the way you did. Then why did everyone treat me like I was? Because they were blind and stupid, and they didn't see what I saw. He tilted her chin up. But they see it now. They all see it now. 3 months later, Kael called a gathering. The entire court assembled in the main hall, tension thick in the air. Serafina stood beside him, dressed in formal leather, dark as midnight, fitted perfectly, with silver threading that caught the light. She felt exposed standing in front of everyone, but Kael's presence beside her kept her grounded. Kael addressed the crowd, his voice carrying easily. When Serafina first came here, most of you wanted her gone. You saw her as a liability, a weakness I was foolish to keep. Murmurs rippled through the hall. You were wrong. Kael's gaze swept the room, challenging anyone to argue. She's proven herself in combat, in control, in loyalty. She's faced down hunters who would have killed any other wolf. She stood her ground against her former pack and showed more restraint than most of you would have. More murmurs, but quieter now. Uncertain. She's earned her place here. Not as a guest. Not as someone under my protection. He turned to Serafina, and his expression softened in a way the court had never seen. But as my equal, my partner, my queen. The hall erupted. Some cheered, some protested. Voices overlapped, arguing, debating, but Kael raised his hand and silence fell like a hammer. Anyone who disagrees is welcome to challenge her, he said, his voice dropping into something dangerous. But I'll warn you, she's a lot harder to kill than she looks. And if you fail... His smile was sharp. I'll finish what you started. A few nervous laughs echoed through the crowd. Then Lyra stepped forward, and the hall went completely quiet. She looked at Serafina for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she dropped to one knee. My queen, she said, clear and unwavering. Serafina's breath caught. One by one, the others followed. Some grudgingly, looking away. Some genuinely, meeting her eyes with respect. Even the wolves who'd doubted her most, who'd made her first weeks here hell, knelt. Every single one of them. Serafina stood there, staring at the sea of bowed heads, and felt something crack open in her chest. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. Not here. Not now. She'd been thrown away. Left to die. Told she was nothing. But she'd survived. Fought. Clawed her way up from the dirt until she stood here, crowned not by birthright, but by her own strength. Kael took her hand, squeezing gently, and she looked at him. Saw pride and love, and something so fierce it took her breath away. How does it feel? He murmured. Serafina looked at him, then at the court, and smiled, small and genuine and free. Like I finally get to decide who I am. And who are you? She thought about it. Thought about the journey from that cursed forest to this moment. Thought about every scar, every lesson, every time she'd gotten back up when staying down would have been easier. Someone who refuses to break, she said finally. Someone who survived everything they threw at her and came out stronger. Someone who turned rejection into power. She squeezed his hand back. Someone who's finally home. Kael's smile was blinding. Welcome home, my queen. Years later, Serafina stood on the battlements watching the sun rise over the Shadowlands. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and beautiful, and hers. The keep had changed under her influence. Where it had once been cold and forbidding, now there was warmth. Gardens grew in the courtyards, Mira's doing, but Serafina tended them. The halls rang with more laughter than they had in decades. Training yards bustled with activity, wolves learning not just combat, but control. Serafina had insisted on it, teaching them that strength wasn't just about how hard you could hit, but about knowing when not to. She'd changed things, not by force, but by example. Kael joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist, and she leaned into him without thinking. It was automatic now, this comfort between them, this belonging. You're up early, he murmured against her hair. Couldn't sleep. Nightmares? No. She turned in his arms, facing him, just thinking. About how far I've come. She looked up at him, this man who'd given her a chance when everyone else wanted her gone. About how I used to think survival was enough, that just staying alive made me strong. And now I know strength isn't about surviving. It's about choosing to fight, even when it's easier to give up, even when everyone tells you you're not worth it. She reached up, touching his face. It's about proving them wrong. Not for them. For yourself. Kael turned his head, kissing her palm. You proved them wrong. We proved them wrong, she corrected. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. You gave me a reason to believe in second chances. His arms tightened around her. Before you, this place was just existing. Going through motions, you made it feel like home. Serafina smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the world wake up around them. Wolves began their morning routines below, training, patrols, life continuing in its steady rhythm. Serafina thought about the girl she'd been, broken, rejected, left to rot in a cursed forest. That girl had wanted to die, had accepted it as inevitable. But she hadn't died. She'd burned, rebuilt, risen. And now, standing here with a crown she'd earned and a kingdom that respected her, she finally understood something her mother had once told her, back when she was young and the world still made sense. Strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every single time. She hadn't understood it then, had thought her mother was just trying to make her feel better about being weak. But she understood now. You don't become strong by avoiding the fire. You become strong by walking through it and refusing to let it consume you, by choosing every single day to keep fighting even when every part of you wants to quit. She'd been cast out as nothing, but in the end, she'd become everything they said she couldn't be: a survivor, a warrior, a queen, and no one, not her old pack, not the hunters, not even the doubts that still whispered in the back of her mind sometimes, could take that away from her, because she'd claimed it, fought for it, bled for it. It was hers. Kale's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Ready for today? Council meeting in an hour, then border inspections, and tonight we're hosting the Northern delegation. She groaned. Do we have to do the council meeting? They just argue for 3 hours and accomplish nothing. Welcome to leadership. It's thrilling. It's torture. He laughed, and the sound made her smile despite herself. Come on, I'll make it worth your while later. Promise? Oh, I promise. He pulled her into a kiss, slow and thorough, and Serafina melted into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, she rested her forehead against his chest. I love you, she said quietly. It still felt strange saying it, but less so every time. I love you too. He kissed the top of her head. Now let's go face the day before Lyra comes looking for us. You know how she gets when we're late. They walked back into the keep together, side by side, equals in every way that mattered. And the Shadowlands, once a place of exile and death, had become home. Not the kind you're born into, but the kind you build with your own hands, brick by brick, choice by choice. Not because it was easy, but because she'd chosen it. And sometimes, Serafina thought as they stepped into the warmth of the keep, the choices we make in the fire are the ones that define us. She'd learned that strength wasn't about being unbreakable. It was about breaking and choosing to put yourself back together, about falling and deciding to stand up again, about being told you're nothing and proving, day after day, that you're everything. Serafina Duskgren had been thrown to the wolves, but she'd become their queen, not through birthright or destiny or some grand cosmic plan, through sheer, stubborn, bloody-minded refusal to stay down. And that, she thought as Kael pulled her into another kiss before they faced the chaos of the day, was the best revenge of all. Not destroying those who'd hurt her, but building something so beautiful, so strong, so undeniably hers, that they could never touch it. She was home, and she'd never let anyone make her feel small again. The girl who'd been left to die in a cursed forest was gone. In her place stood a queen, and she was just getting started.